Okay, viewers, because you have always said that you want an earlier show. We usually go live at 9 p.m., but here is your chance now overseas and across the pond to catch us live. And for those of you who are stateside, welcome back on the heels of last night. Hello, Katie.
Hi, Kyle. How are you?
I'm doing quite well, thank you. And would you like to
Good.
take a second and introduce our guest?
Sure. So, if any of you follow my column on Without a Crystal Ball and Pathos, you'll know that I've written a few articles about this young man. His name is Ethan Lindenberger, and he has, wow, been on a wild ride. He made a simple little request in Reddit back in the fall to learn how to get vaccinated. And now he's speaking at Senate committees, he's doing TED Talks, he's talking about vaccine misinformation. His family is everywhere. So we have him today after he reached out to us, and we're super excited. Do you want to say hi to everyone, Ethan?
Hi, how's it going? Glad to be on the show, and thanks for inviting me, guys. I'm really glad I was able to jump on this.
Yeah, we're super happy to have you.
Yeah.
So, Ethan, why don't you take a second and officially introduce yourself to everyone, let people know why you're in the middle of the media everywhere, the TED Talks. What sparked that? What actually happened?
Yeah, so I made a Reddit post back in November, I think it was, and it was a simple Reddit post where I was like, "Hey, my mom does not think vaccines are good, and now that I'm 18, what do I do?" And I got like a good amount of responses, probably like 2,000 or 3,000 people that commented and gave some really good answers. And about a month later, I got my first round of shots, which I had never gotten really any vaccines up to that point for 18 years. And a month later, maybe 2 months later, I had like someone contact me and they asked to do an interview about how teens were using the internet to like manage misinformation online and get vaccinated. And that spiraled into like news interviews with like Fox News and then BBC and like just everyone was like jumping on the story. And a few months, like about a month or two later after that, I was invited to speak at the HELP Committee of Health, Education, Labor, and Pensions. So from there, like it's just been kind of progressing since then. So it's been kind of nuts.
It's amazing.
Yeah, it's definitely something.
Can you even believe that, like, when you put that post on Reddit and you were just literally looking to learn how to get vaccinated, that you would be where you are today?
No. No. So really all it was like my mom, for anyone that hasn't like followed her story or like my story really at all, is very, very like staunchly anti-vax, not like hesitant, but she really thinks that they cause autism and brain damage and they're really negative for you. There's really like no health benefits to it. And because of that, I just grew up never getting vaccinated, and she was very vocal about thinking vaccines were very bad. And so me asking on Reddit was like, hey, I've never really talked to a whole lot of people about this. I've done some research. I don't agree with my mom. What do I do? And that's all it was. It wasn't like a ploy. It wasn't like me trying to get my name out there. And nothing happened for like a month or two. And then I got like one small interview and I was like, okay, maybe this will die down. And like this out probably be it. That was fun. And then like next thing I know, Washington Post contacts me and I'm like, okay, what's going on here? And so progressively it's always been me asking like, what's going on? This is crazy. Even up to now where I'm just like, this is still wild. So I still have a hard time like accepting it, I guess.
Well, don't stop asking what's going on, and you'll have an illustrious career.
Right.
Yeah, I was trying to remember, like, who was it? Like, what was the news outlet that actually broke the story first?
It was this really small science magazine out of MIT called Undark Magazine. So it was UNDARK. Really not anything super crazy. I don't think they have much of a following really at all, but they're great. They're fantastic. And the reporter contacted me through Reddit and was like, hey, I'm doing this story. Can you work with me here to like talk about your experiences and like why you turned to the internet? And I was like the only kid that wasn't like anonymous because I really didn't care much about it. And my mom knew I was doing this interview. So why would I really hide it? So because of that, the story kind of highlighted me a little bit more and also talked about my mom. So that story, and I had multiple kids in it. So it wasn't just like Ethan Lindenberger, the story. It was like multiple kids, but also this kid, Ethan's the only one who really gave his name. And we actually talked to his mom, which was more interesting as well. And NPR was one that followed that up. After NPR was Washington Post, and they kind of blew up from there.
Oh,
What
gotcha.
what was it like? Can you take us back in growing up with your mother being so is this like, is she more conspiratorial, like theory minded, or was this the only kind of the only thing that she clutched to? And what was it that made you start to question her stance on vaccines?
Yeah, so for her beliefs, they do come from a place of like genuine fear. I
Mm,
wouldn't say like, she's just a conspiracy theorist, but there is like a mindset involved that I definitely think you can attribute. So she kind of has this mentality, and some of my other family members have the same mentality that the government is like out to get you, that large organizations, corporations, and governments are hiding information. They have their own interest in their own money at play here. They care about that more than people, and so because of that mindset lends to like these conspiracy theories easily. So if you think
Hmm.
everyone's out to get you and they're hiding information, that makes sense that only like these fringe groups would like know the truth. And also these fringe groups and these organizations and communities, these communities like encourage that, and they say like, yes, the government is hiding stuff, you are right, we are the only people that understand this. And it kind of builds that bond between people in those communities. And so like it's multiple things that play there, not just like a mindset, but a community and a mindset and an actual like belief. And so there's a lot to it, but there definitely is a mindset, I'd say.
sure.
Right.
And what was
We
it?
talk. Oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Katie. No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, when I cover, obviously you've seen a little bit of my column. I cover anti-vax world quite a bit, and I liken them to almost like a cult. Um, and I wonder, like, did your mother, like, with her? And I've watched plenty of interviews with your mother, and let's just
Yeah.
say she's definitely believes what she says.
Yep. I'm not making this up.
And yeah, like if you just Google Jill Wheeler, just be fair warned. And does she surround herself in her personal life like with other people that are like this? So when you were growing up, was this the type of people you were around beyond just like online?
Yeah. So like she has friends that believe this, right? We live in a very small town in Norwalk, Ohio, which is like less than 20,000 people. It's really small. And it's also a very conservative community, which isn't bad, but um, there's a decent amount of people that do believe that vaccines are very bad. Even at my church, I serve at a local church here in Norwalk, and I've served there for almost 7 years. There were people that were really upset that I was like talking to the media and encouraging people to get vaccinated because they were like, "This is not okay." Um, so
Wow.
there's definitely real people that she surrounds herself with that do believe that vaccines are very negative. And I just kind of grew up agreeing with it. Why would I? Why would I not?
Sure. And that's what
So
fascinates me. What was it that sparked your sort of doubt in that? Growing up believing that for several years, what made you question what your mother had taught you all these years?
Yeah, so it was kind of like a mixed bag of different factors and influences, but the biggest one that I recall, because I'm 18 and I started like kind of questioning what she was thinking about maybe 6 or 7 years ago. Um, I really recall like getting having a phone or having access to the internet and seeing that on social media, especially, she would share videos and articles and things that were like, "Oh, vaccines are bad. Vaccines cause autism. Here's a link to like a story. Here's a video about a vaccine injured mom," or something like that. And I remember like constantly underneath the comments of that video be like 4 or 5 people that be like, this is wrong, this is incorrect, like vaccines don't cause autism. And they link to like some other site, and there'd be these arguments. And so like, I saw that people disagreed with her, especially after I had a phone and I got access to the internet. And I saw that especially on social media there was that presence, and also like going to school, because at school they'd be like, hey, you can't come here if you don't have your vaccines. And I'd be like, well, my mom doesn't believe in them. And they just go,
Mm,
okay, get her to sign a paper and like, guess you don't need them. Because in Ohio, you have both exemptions of religious and personal reasons. So like every year would be a thing where they'd be like, you need to like either resubmit your exemption or like you can't come. So that was kind of weird. It just made me question it a little bit. And after asking questions, it just never held up. Like it never made sense.
Well, good for you
So
for
that like unlocked. Yeah. I'm sorry.
Yeah, you're
Oh,
good.
you're fine, Katie. Go ahead.
I was just saying, like, so it just like unlocked this like whole world to you. And I watched your Senate testimony, which, by the way, you really held your own. You did a great job
Thank you.
sitting next to those incredible doctors and very well educated vaccine creators. And you just did your own thing, Mr. 18-year-old man. I was listening and I was interested because you said in there that you began interested in looking at the other side when you were like involved with your debate club.
Mm-hmm.
So tell me about like when you start that.
See, okay, so the interesting thing about that actually is that I started the debate club and I like didn't want to like kind of gloat about that. I said like in the debate club I was in, like we talked about doing research and I would use the knowledge I was gaining and like the information to like approach other issues, and one of them was vaccines. So it wasn't just like, oh, the debate club was like, hey Ethan, like get vaccinated, like what are you doing? I led the debate club and I taught kids about doing like well-rounded research, and because of that I started doing better research myself, and in everything between politics and religion and vaccines, like I was just making sure I knew what I was talking about. And so approaching my mom with stuff just never held up because I was like, the sources aren't good, your information doesn't make sense, the logic really isn't there. You're using anecdotes, fallacies, like, and it just didn't hold up. And so really over time it was just like more and more I would see that this didn't make any sense.
That's awesome. Just as an aside, what's your favorite thing to because like I said before we started the show, our channel is mainly a debate platform. What's your favorite thing to debate?
So we've had a lot of debates within the clubs. I guess for me, I didn't really debate often because I would moderate and I would like get the kids to get talking. We do a lot of topics and discussions about research, not always just arguing. For me personally, I always love discussions about both religion and politics more. Because for something like vaccines, it's not really a debate. I even said in my Senate testimony that this isn't a debate. It's like you're either like grounded in science or misinformation. That's really about it. There's not an argument against vaccines that holds any water. And anything that you do say to try and make a point ends up falling apart against the countless lives that have been saved. So it's like there really isn't an argument there. So I talk more about religion and politics more often. That's kind of what I get interested in.
Oh, well, like I said, anytime you want to come and debate, we do religion probably 3 times a week. So if you're ever interested, we would love to have you. I want to know like how your mother took it when you decided that you were going to get vaccinated. What was that conversation like with your mother?
So what's interesting is that like I haven't talked a lot about that experience as much because it wasn't brought up often. I know when my mom, she went on Del Bigtree's show and spoke to him about like 4 days maybe after I gave the Senate testimony. What she was claiming was like I just got vaccinated kind of one day and that was it, and I kind of just told her and it was done, which really isn't factual. It's not really true. What really happened was I made that Reddit post after having discussions with her in the past and feeling like it really wasn't going anywhere. And I called her after school, I think a day or two after the Reddit post. I was like, hey, I want to make an appointment with my family physician and talk to them about vaccines and like if I need vaccinated because I need them for college. And she was like, well, no, you don't need them for college. You can just say you don't want them. And you can exempt out of them. And I was like, well, I don't know if I want to do that, because that's my call at that point, not yours. And she was like, what do you mean you want to get vaccinated? And I was like, it's my choice at this point for college. And if I want to go to college and they're telling me I need my vaccines, I'm probably going to do it. And I would talk to my physician about it. And she was very upset. She said was very afraid, in her own words, just full of fear. And it didn't go well. Like the reaction was not positive. And I just try to tell her, like, listen, I think it's important. I've talked to you about what I believe. And I'm talking to the physician and get her advice, come to you, talk more about it. And it was like a month between the appointment I made and then the actual like date to get my vaccines. So it was a large window of time for her to like talk to me about it and accept it. So I mean, I just did my best to communicate that was important, and I wasn't doing it out of any malicious reason, you know.
Sure. Were you
It
scared?
sounds like she struck. Oh, I'm sorry.
You're good. No, I mean, really, I wasn't, because for me, the only reason I spoke to my physician was saying like, "Hey, I've done my research. How do I get this done?" It wasn't me being like, "What's your opinion?" I was like, "Hey, I'm gonna do this. Like, where do I go? And do I need my insurance? Like, do I need my SSN? What do I need? I don't know." And she was just like, go to the health department. I'm glad you're doing this. It's really important. Here's some papers that like explain the vaccines you need and what's in them, like all that stuff. Answer common questions. And she was just like, "Listen, your mom doesn't hate you. I just don't think she's right, and the medical community doesn't agree with her." And like, she talked about Andrew Wakefield with me, and she was like, "It's okay." And I was like, "Yeah, it's gonna be great. I'm excited." And I went to the health department. They were super cool. So there was like no fear at all, because everyone was so accommodating as well. It was like I was walking in, they're like, "What are you doing here, vax kid?" Like, I don't like couldn't cough on anybody. Like, I don't know. Like, they were cool. So it was
Awesome.
fine.
Good deal.
So
Okay.
your one of your siblings was actually vaccinated. Which one was that? Like, which one of your siblings?
I think my oldest sister, she's 24 or something, I think.
Okay.
Around that age. I think she's maybe 25. So she's my half sister. She lives in Texas. And so I think she was vaccinated because my mom didn't do the research she claimed she did when she had her as a baby. So that's what I assume.
And on the Without a Crystal Ball, we say do your research. And that's usually you're looking on your phone, reading some things that other moms post on Facebook. Right.
Right. I say research with parentheses. Like, she claims she's done research, she's read books and stuff. And as much as I'd like to believe that, even if she did do all that, the books and the research she was doing was fraudulent, and so there's not much credit you can give at that point.
So something I thought was interesting is in one of her interviews, and she's mentioned this a couple times. She mentioned this when she was speaking with, I don't know, before she got like the bigger interviews, she had this like random weirdo on YouTube that was like super anti-vax. I don't know what his name is. I don't remember what his name is. And she was talking about like, and she told Del Bigtree the same thing. And it didn't make any sense to me. And she was talking about how she always believed that vaccines were a one and done thing, and that they told her that the chicken pox, they would have to come back in 10 years. But the chicken pox isn't one you get every 10 years. So what I thought was interesting is she based her decision on something that wasn't even true.
Yeah.
Do you think she's just confused?
Well, so here's the thing with vaccines, right? Like with a lot of these anti-vax beliefs, there's a lot of just really strange ideas at play that aren't just like research based. Like a lot of misconceptions about what vaccines are. And so I remember speaking to my mom after I got vaccinated, and I got home from my first appointment, and she was like, "How are you feeling?" And I was like, "I feel fine. Like, I'm okay." And she was just like, "Okay, well, I'm just worried." And I was like, "Why?" And she goes, "It's just something that's not supposed to be in your body that you're putting in your body." And I'm like, that doesn't make any sense. Like, is Advil supposed to be in your body? No, but it helps. Like, what does that logic extend to? Like, food? Like, I'm pretty sure that like coconuts aren't supposed to be in our body. They're wrapped in a shell. Like, what does that mean? And even though the logic doesn't make any sense, like, it's still there. And so, yeah, I mean, like, even if that's not factually how the vaccines work, like, the idea that they're just not supposed to be in your body isn't true either. So there's a lot there at play.
I just thought it was odd that her whole basis was like that you had to get the chicken pox vaccine every 10 years, and you actually don't have to get the chicken pox vaccine. And if she walked in believing that most vaccines were one and done, then it was almost like she wasn't really educated, because several of the vaccines you do have to get multiple times throughout your life. And kids have to get boosters later on as the vaccines wear off. I just thought that was interesting.
Yeah.
Well, what was it? What did she base her belief that vaccines are bad on originally? Do you know? Like, did she go and tell you like what it was that kind of sparked this?
and what's weird is that like we would talk about like information that she had and like what I could debunk and what we could talk about. And you guys are familiar with the Vax Ed documentary. She had
Mhm.
that, a friend had given it to her. I remember her saying, and I said like, okay, this documentary is like flaming garbage. Like, don't base anything off of this. And she was like, oh, I haven't even watched that yet, but like a friend gave it to me. So if you want to like watch it together, we can talk about what it's saying and you can like debunk it. And I was like, why would I waste like hours and hours and hours of my time like going through a documentary if you could just look at the credits of who made it and that's enough. um
Right.
and
Yeah.
what's weird is that like she like we sat down and watched the video. I even talked about this in my actual written testimony for the Senate hearing, because there's the oral testimony I gave and the written testimony. And for the written testimony I talked about a video that we watched together where it was Del Bigtree, and it was a doctor who is very vocal in the anti-vax community, who sells like holistic medicines and approaches and stuff like that. And I think he's a chiropractor. But this doctor was on Del's show.
A doctor.
I can't remember his name. I wrote it down in the written testimony. I can't recall it for the life of me. But we watched this video, and it was about the measles outbreak and how it's like a big waste of time to worry about because it's only a couple cases of measles. And we were talking. She watched it with me, and she was like, "Hey, watch this video." And it was full of nothing. It's nonsense. And I explained why it was nonsense. And I was like, "Listen, Mom, what they're doing is they're comparing the death rate of measles in the past 15 years, which is 0, and comparing it to the amount of people that have apparently died to the measles vaccine, which was like 200 in the past 15 years. And I'm like, okay, let's slow down there. How many people have gotten the measles vaccine out of those 200, which is probably like close to 10 million at least, maybe more, close to 100 millions. Yeah. We're talking about so many MMR vaccines that are administered to people because you're having millions of people born all the time. And so over the course of 15 years, I mean, like that's going to be a big number quick. And I was like, they're not presenting that statistic of like the percentage amount of people that actually die to it. And the reason that that's a 0 number to measles is because of the vaccine. Like that doesn't make any sense. And she was just like, I don't get it. Like that doesn't make sense. That's not true. Like the vaccine's killing people and that's not okay. And I was like, what do you mean? Like this is very clear. They're skewing the data here. But the premise of vaccines being safe was just not believed. So that entire thing wasn't true. The entire argument I made just wasn't founded because obviously vaccines kill people. And so, yeah.
But they don't. I mean, there's not 200 people that have died from the MMR.
Yeah, I say again, like, because you're talking about different factors like the reactions in allergic sense. You're talking about how oftentimes reactions to vaccines are, I think it was seizures caused by the fevers that you can develop from a vaccine, which is like, you can get a seizure from any fever, right? And so it's like, you're talking about a very bad fever that can happen for anything. You get the common cold and you can have a seizure. And it's like, so we're talking about how this is totally unfounded. You're just attributing a causality. And just because she's been led to believe it through whatever source she found it on, she just reinforces it. And so I'm not saying like she's dumb, but it's like these sources are like influencing her, and people like Del Bigtree and these doctors, like these chiropractors who have no medical training on a really expert level at all, even an amateur level, they're chiropractors. They're giving advice to her, telling her like this is what's true, and it's not. So I don't know where it's founded, but I know where it's reinforced at least, and it's not accurate.
Sure.
Well, and it doesn't sound like she even wants to hear the truth or the facts. She just wants to hear what is already in her mind. She wants the echo chamber of vaccines are dangerous, vaccines are going to cause autism, vaccines cause injuries, vaccines are bad.
Right.
Well,
we're also talking about how like we're also talking about how she believes that like the CDC is hiding evidence. So like even if you pull up a CDC article, it's not going to go anywhere. So that stuff really limits how far you can talk.
We talked about we talk about your mother because she's in sort of the spotlight, but what about the rest of your family? Like your father, what's his take on it?
So my dad's like more vaccine hesitant is kind of what he's found like an accurate term, because he's told me like I'm not anti-vax. I think vaccines are fine, especially for older kids. So his problem comes to like young children. So for instance, like when I went and got my vaccines back in December, and the conversation was following a month beforehand, I called my dad and I was like, hey, mom's kind of not cool with me getting these vaccines. Do you care? And he's like, why would I care? You're 18. And so he's more of a very relaxed guy in general. But yeah, he still thinks that for young kids, they get too many shots. And I think that's also based off of like celebrities and politicians that are saying they get too many shots. Like you're talking about how Donald Trump was saying that like babies get vaccines that look like a horse needle, which isn't true. And so there's a lot of misinterpreted ideas about what it looks like when a kid gets a vaccine and what even happens. So he's still like a little on that in that realm of thinking, but not nearly as far, and especially not as. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. He's of that belief that there's too many shots at once, and what they don't. And when people believe that, just to give the audience a sort of a background about that, is they think that they're getting more antigens and they're getting bombarded in their bodies because there's more shots going in. But what they don't realize is that the vaccines have become so effective and they've been able to tweak them that children today get thousands upon thousands upon thousands less of the antigens than I got, 40 years ago, because they've become more effective.
Yeah. So, and that's just my dad. For the rest of my family, they just fall in way different categories depending on who you talk about. Like one person over here could be against them. One person over here could be like for them. So, because we have a large family of like 6 siblings. So there's a lot of opinions floating around.
How is the dynamic now between you and your mother, with you, obviously doing interviews all over the place and advocating for vaccines? Has that put a strain on the two of you's relationship?
I mean, obviously it will, because you're talking about how, like, even no matter how respectfully I can talk about her, like, even just saying she's misinformed is claiming she hasn't done real research, and so that's going to be insulting to people that hold these opinions, and herself included. So, I mean, it's obviously going to cause some strain in the sense of like she's going to look at these interviews and be like, "Wow, I cannot believe he's saying this." But I'm not talking bad about her. I've even said multiple times that's out of a place of love, and she does care about her kids, and even though she's not the problem, it's the people convincing her and reinforcing these ideas that are the problem. There have been some interviews that she's done where she's been very vocally negative, and very much so trying to like take away any authority or reason or just qualification to talk on this. And so I've tried to work out with her like how to properly handle this and say like, hey, you don't need to be mean about this. Like let's be cordial. But she still holds these opinions. She still thinks that I'm definitely in the wrong here. And even in the interview she did with the Wild Doc, which is this anti-vax Facebook group, she talked about how she's convincing like my 5-year-old brother that vaccines are bad. And so there's some real strain there, and I'm trying my best to like, be respectful towards it and say like, hey, I understand this place of love, but like, please rethink this. And especially like the way that there's been some behavior. So yeah, I mean, I'm just trying my best to handle it the best way I can and be mature and responsible, because that's all I can really handle. It's all I can control. So that's what I focus on, at least.
It's gotta be tough for you.
I need to step away for 1 second. Why don't you guys continue?
Sure, Katie.
Sorry.
It's gotta be tough for you, because I assume that you want, sort of, I guess what you would call a normal relationship with your mother, but the situation that you're in now kind of, it doesn't really allow for that, does it?
Yeah, well, it's not a normal situation is the thing. Like, I can't expect there to be like a reciprocated honesty, genuineness, and respect and all this stuff when really I am going on interviews and going and giving presentations and saying like, hey, the basis of what I'm saying is that my mom is wrong. And it is weird because like I definitely see that the criticism I get does not come from a place of like concern for that. Like there was a video I was watching of this pastor who was like dogging on me, and he was like, Ethan's like only 18, like he's an adult, like why do we care what he does? And he said in this like video he filmed, obviously he survived till he was 18, so that proves vaccines aren't effective or necessary. And I was like, see, there it is. It's not just your religion. It's not just, the fact I'm 18. It's that you don't agree with me. Right there, you're saying I am wrong. And you're using that as like this umbrella like term of like, Ethan's just obviously not right. So everything else can trickle down with that and say like, okay, he's unqualified and like all this stuff, because now you made a basis for that opinion. So
Absolutely.
yeah, so I don't get super upset by it, and I know that's going to happen. People misinterpret it. Even my mom included misinterprets it, and I can't force people to understand, and people that I think are logical and looking at my story and have kept up with it see that I'm not like disrespecting her in any way, because I'm saying like, hey, she is loving, she is caring, she's just been misled, and that's the problem.
How long ago was it that you got the vaccine, and what do they say about the fact that you've not had any, or I assume that you've not had any um, bad reactions to that?
Yeah, right. No, so really, like, there's that mentality of like fear just continues to like cause problems, where like with my mom, uh even after months of being vaccinated, going through multiple round of shots, she still thinks like something could happen. And even a friend was talking to her about this and pointing out like that is a self-fulfilling prophecy, that like something's going to happen to him, and the moment he gets sick for any reason, it's the vaccine. Which you
Right.
see very commonly with people that hold these opinions, is that like anything can be attributed at all, and it's not.
Oh
And for
yeah.
her, like, she's done it before to other people. We have a friend in the family, like we all mutually are friends with, where he has a stutter, and her like this guy stutters really bad. He's like in his 20s, and his mom has adamantly told all of us like it's because of the vaccines he got when he was a kid that caused his stutter, and she believes that. And so just random things can be attributed. And so for me, like, even though I'm fine, there's still that fear that something can happen. Like I'll have a reaction eventually, which doesn't make any sense.
So
Sure.
is she vaccinated, Ethan?
Yeah.
There's some hypocrisy there then. Like, she's
I mean,
fine,
there is,
right?
but at the same
Or
time,
is
you're
her
talking about
anti
how like she believes it's negative, she believes it's dangerous, and so she can't control what's into her. So I try not to use that as much as an argument, but I definitely see what you're saying there, and I kind of agree.
Sure.
I watched an interview of hers, and she was talking about one of your little sisters. I think that's like 4 or something.
Yeah.
And she was talking about how she has this perfect little girl, and she's got such bright lights in her eyes, and she can't imagine vaccinating her because the light will go away. And
Yeah.
I was like thinking, but you're vaccinated, so does that mean your
Right.
lights are dimmer? Like, sometimes I wonder, do they even understand the hypocrisy of the fact that they're vaccinated and then afraid of vaccines?
Right. Well, even then, like with that whole like headlights thing, with like deer in the headlights just
Yeah.
staring at danger and just doing nothing with it. Um, like Del Bigtree, that was in the interview. She talked about that. He even said like, I just hope that Ethan's like articulation, his speaking skills aren't like taken away from these vaccines. I remember watching it and being like, dude, screw off. Like, you're seriously gonna be like, oh, Ethan's so articulate, I hope that doesn't leave him. Like, don't give me that credit and then like claim that I'm gonna lose it as a vaccine. Like, that's such baloney. And
Sure.
it's insane. Like, and that doesn't make any sense. And the idea that I'm so articulate and so smart because I'm not vaccinated makes no sense. You're talking about countless people. We have no clue how many people there were that were fantastic speakers, politicians, advocates, people they probably even admire themselves are vaccinated. It's like, that makes no sense at all. Like, vaccines don't contribute to intelligence, to anything like that. They only contribute to your health in a positive way. It's like that makes no sense at all. Even if you don't even look at the evidence, just logically, it has no water to it at all. It holds no water. And so it's just that one made me mad. That one made me so mad, like seeing Dell's show, because I was like, dude, what are you talking about? I'm not smart because I'm not vaccinated. Like, that makes no sense.
Yeah.
So
That brings up
I don't. It's insane.
that brings up a good question. Being we know it, Katie especially, because she's been getting quite the attention from people that she's been very vocal against. When you go against a group that has such strong opinions, especially in the anti-vax community, because they're very they can get
Right.
very vicious. Have you faced any sort of backlash or like vitriolic rhetoric from the internet? And if so, how do you handle that?
Yeah. There's a few stories I could tell. Just right off the bat, like the one I won't get super deep into. When I went to Washington, D.C. for the Senate committee hearing that was taking place about a day or two after I arrived, there was a woman like by the curb waiting for me that was like, hey, we respect your right to choose. Here's my card. And I was like, okay, thanks. And an intern was showing me around the office where the Senate hearing would take place. And 3 ladies got in an elevator with me and pulled out their phones and they were recording me. And they're like, hey, Ethan, like, you're the reason babies are dying, like telling people they should get vaccinated. Like, how you should feel so much shame and guilt. Like, how can you go on living with what you're doing? And I was like, what? And that was nuts. Facebook, I posted a picture when I went to New York for an interview with Samantha Bee, and probably 4,000 comments, maybe something like that. The majority of which were saying like I'm ugly, that I have bad acne, and that's a vaccine reaction. That anything you could say about my appearance was like attacked, and I didn't care. Like half my high school peers are more creative than these people. So really it was just like it showed like how petty some of these people were, and I was like, great job proving a point that you guys have no arguments if you're just going to insult my intelligence or my appearance.
Yeah, and if they have to attack your appearance, it's absolutely, they don't have any, there's nothing they have no intelligent things to offer.
Right. So and even people,
I got told I had a receding hairline.
Yeah.
Well,
people were even saying like, why are you keeping your post public if you don't want all this hate? And I was like, you guys are continuously proving this point that you have nothing. Like, and it's insane.
Right. When they have to attack your appearance, they're not, as long whatever they're doing, if they're not attacking your argument, that means that you have a strong case. When they have to resort to anything other than attacking, the claims made in the argument, that's a big deal. Just as an aside, though, how was Samantha Bee? She's one of my heroes.
Oh yeah, dude. That was nuts, because I got so actually Jane Roberts, who originally broke the story for Undark, she contacted me, sent me an email that was like, hey, like Samantha Bee contacted me, and she was like asking me she could talk to you, like, can I forward your email or something? And I was like, yeah, like why would you ask that? And Samantha's team said that they'd fly me out to New York, and we go to New York City. I'd stay for like a day or two, and they'd film this episode, and I'd go home the next day after that. And so we filmed. It took a while. It was like, I think 11 or 10 to like 5. So we filmed like for the majority of the day, and she was so cool. Like, when I got there, I mean, she was already set up for her interview, and I just left like hair and makeup, and I sit down with her, and she was like, hey, Ethan, like, it's so good to meet you. I was like, yeah, like, I'm excited for this. And she was hilarious. She was super funny.
Good.
So that was really
cool.
Like, she isn't just like scripts being handed to her that are funny. Like, she actually gets pretty clever. And afterwards, I was like very cordial, like, hey, like, thank you for inviting me. Gave her a handshake, and she was like, no, come here. She gave me a big hug, and she was like, let me know if you need anything or if you're in New York again. And I was like, dude, this is so cool. Like, it takes a lot.
It's amazing.
So yeah, it was really neat. It was one of the highlights for sure. Like, I have a hat actually in my closet here from her show, and so like that's one of my like little prize knickknacks of that trip. So it was cool. It was really neat.
Speaking of which, you say that you've got several I guess souvenirs from the different things that you've done. Do you still have the Surgeon General card like handy near you?
So I have two things near me. So I have this. This is the card from the Surgeon General, and I think I can show this here. So that's really cool. And I won't show it, but he put like his office phone number in the back, or like something like that, so I can get a hold of him. But then also I got this little boy. I don't think I showed you this. This is a letter I got from the Senate committee, and it's signed by Senator Lamar Alexander, and it was like, hey, thanks for talking. And so that was really cool. And so I have like a couple little things lying around. I did a bunch of little knickknacks. Like, actually, I reach over here. I have I have the coasters from the hearing, so that's really fun. But yeah, just a bunch of random stuff.
Excellent.
So that's cool.
Good for you. So what are you going to do? What are your plans for the future? This is obviously you're sort of an advocate now for vaccines. Do you plan on going further into that, or are you gonna what are you gonna do now that you've got all this attention?
I mean, like, I haven't been offered a job to do it. Like, it's mainly been like, hey, speak at this event, like, do this, or can you write it for a blog? And I've been glad to do that. So I haven't had any plans to like try and pursue anything. I've really just been taking any opportunity that's opened up to me. But I'm still pursuing the plans I've had before this took place, where I've been serving at my church for about 7 years, and I'm planning to go into ministry as a pastoral lead in a church. So I'm going to California in a Bible college in the spring or fall, and hoping to like do that. So that's kind of my plan. It's been the same for the past like 5 years. I'm planning to do that. So it's nothing super related to this, but that also is not acknowledging what could happen. So that's kind of where I'm at now.
Gotcha. Cool.
So
Katie?
how are with your you did a TED Talk. You're going to
Yeah.
be this fall going to, when does your TED Talk, when will that be released?
So we did it like almost a month ago. It was like 3 weeks ago, maybe 3 or 4 weeks ago. And I don't know how long it takes them to edit all of it together, but it was a lot. There were about like 5 or 6 hours of talks for like 3 days straight. So it's a lot of video to edit down with multiple camera angles. So I assume it won't take them like, it was hopefully won't take them more than a couple more months at least. But I mean, it went really well. So I'm not sure when it's going to be released, but I mean, a lot of people were very excited to speak to me afterwards, and it was really cool. So I don't know when that's going to be released, but other than that, like I have a couple other events I'm speaking at as well.
What's the topic of it?
So the TED Talk I gave 4 weeks ago was about misinformation and also about advocacy. I talked about it a lot because the theme was unbreakable was the title of the TED hearing or TED meeting. And so the TED meeting and event was unbreakable for TEDx Mid-Atlantic. And so I talked about just being unbreakable when you're standing up for what you believe. And, you know, you don't even need to be like an advocate doing interviews. You can just be a normal person who's like saying, hey, people around me, my family, my friends, you know, my social circle, like this is what's true. We need to kind of agree on this. And so how that's how it always starts. So for me, it started with saying, hey, mom, I'm going to get vaccinated, even though this will cause a lot of frustration and maybe some damage because I know how strongly you feel. It started with that and then led to a national scale, you know? So if I never started there, I never would have ended here. And that's kind of what I talked about was like, you never know what the impact is. You always had to stand up for truth. So that's kind of what I talked about, which was really cool. It was fun.
So, and you guys might have talked about this, but I was wondering how long was this like leading up to the fact of like you starting to question to the point of like going to your mom? Like how long of that to then getting vaccinated? Like what was the timeline?
Yeah, it was so about 13 maybe I had a phone, and before or after that at some point I had seen she was posting stuff and getting people very heated and arguing with her about vaccines. So I saw people disagree with her. And over I think it was like 4 years, 5 years maybe, I was like talking to her about vaccines. So since I was like 13, just like saying like, hey, why do people say this? This is why. Why do people say autism is caused by vaccines? This is why. And I was like, that doesn't make a lot of sense. And I was like 16 when I asked her about the CDC and said like, hey, the CDC says vaccines don't cause autism. Why do you say they do? And she's like, well, that's what they want you to think. And I was like, that doesn't make any sense. I think I see who's right here. So it was multiple years of like those arguments and those discussions coming up. And then I couldn't do anything if I decided she was wrong. Couldn't go out and get vaccinated. I was 16. So even after I turned 18, it was like a fear of like, if I do go get vaccinated, like, do I do it behind her back? Do I tell her? And then she gets mad at me. Like, what do I do here? And so I made that Reddit post eventually, like thinking that I might get some good advice. And so that's kind of how it lined up.
Yeah, I mean, I spent a lot of time in that Reddit post, and I saw a lot of people even telling you like how you could potentially hide the insurance from her or pay for it out of pocket so she wouldn't have to know. And then
people offered me money to do it out of pocket if I couldn't pay for it. Like I had every opportunity to do that without her ever finding out. I didn't do that.
So it's interesting that you would say that this is like how it started, because in an interview with Del Bigtree, she said that it was just like you just were like one day like I'm gonna get vaccinated now, and then she said that you knew nothing and now you're gonna go like speak at the Senate committee, and why would they talk to you because she's the one that's done her research and she's the one that they should interview. Do you think that a part of this backlash between the two of you that's been going on in the media and her sort of response, do you think part of it is rooted in that she would want more attention, or that she just feels like she's under attack?
So I see what you're saying there. I think it's more the latter. That she feels like under attack almost. Because the thing is like, I don't know how she came to that conclusion that like I just did it one day. Because even the Reddit post, I wasn't like, hey, are vaccines good? And then I was doing interviews. I was saying, hey, I've done research. What do I do with my family dynamics at play? Like, what do I do with like, where do I go to get vaccines? I've never went and got my shots. I've never been taken to the health department. You know, what do I need to bring with me? Do I need to bring identification? Do I need to bring money to pay for upfront? Like, I've never made my own doctor's appointment. You know, it's always been my mom doing it. So I'm 18, like I'm smart enough to figure it out, but Reddit's just more convenient because I can have discussions with people if I have more questions, and I don't have to take as long. It's
Yeah.
pretty quick responses. And it wasn't like I was going and trying to get informed. I already was informed, and I was saying like, hey, what do I do
Right.
with this? And so she looked at it as me being like, I don't know anything about vaccines. I'm going to ask Reddit. And then they were like, go get vaccinated. And I went and did it. So
No,
I don't
your
know if you
questions
did
were
read
pretty
the post.
clear. Like you wanted to get vaccinated. You just needed to know like, where do I go? Which ones do I need?
Right,
That kind of
right.
stuff.
And that's a simple question that anyone would ask, even if I was an adult and I was
Yeah.
making this decision, like I'd need to know that. And even if I asked my health physician, like if I asked my mom for an appointment with a health physician and I needed her number to like go and ask her, she'd be like, why? And I'm like, well, I need to ask about vaccines. Well, why are you asking about vaccines? I don't know. I think you're wrong. And then it would be the same exact situation. So really, like, it didn't play out in a unique way in that sense. I got the same advice I would have gotten if I went somewhere else. And I would have done the same thing
Right.
if I went there. And so for her eyes, like, I don't know what illusion has been cast on her to think that like I just did it one day, but that's not really what happened at all. And even the fact there was a month in between that appointment and getting those shots, she had ample time to speak to me. So I don't know. I think there is an element she's under attack and she has to defend herself. She spoke about how like she's the wrong mother to mess with, and
Yeah.
she's gonna fight back. And so there is that element of like put in a corner that she believes, which just doesn't make any sense. And she's even been very caught up in like the anger she's gotten on social media and like any hate she's gotten. And it's like, dude, even if we were going to look at like who has more hate, like who freaking cares? Like if people are being mean to you, just ignore them. That's what I've been doing, and I'm fine. I'm dealing with it. And so I don't know
Yeah.
if that's gotten to her, but
Yeah.
I
It's
just can't
odd.
say,
It's
Do you-
odd because
do you
as a journalist that covers this type of stuff, I see someone like I'm a mother, so I can definitely like empathize with the mama bear. I can see the mama
Mm.
bear in her a lot. I can see that she truly feels like these are dangerous. She really feels like they're going to damage
Right.
children, and she doesn't want kids to be hurt. Like I hear that in her voice, and I hear that
Right.
loudly. But then there's also this element of, well, if she believes that, then why does she need to continue to talk about it? Do you think that at some point this is going to drive a wedge in your, like, can your relationship recover from this? Like, how do you see yourself moving forward with that?
I mean, the thing is with like our relationship is that I'm a very logical person. I'm a very like, if A is true, B is true, then that means C is the best answer. I don't get very emotional very easily. And I'm very good at empathizing and speaking to people, and I have a decent amount of friends who I interact with, so it's not like I'm this walled off robot of a person. But she very quickly jumps to the emotion, jumps to the reactionary, and I think there is that dynamic of like our personalities are very different, and so when it comes to a situation that is very high stress like this, that's going to impact how we behave and how we function. And so while I'm going like, hey, I know the media is going to ask me about my mom. I know that it doesn't do me any good to start any controversy. I know it doesn't do me any good to
Right.
talk about her badly because I shouldn't be doing that in the first place. In her eyes, she's like, oh, I'm just getting attacked. I'm going to speak my mind and just do it. So it's not like I'm hurt by that. It's just a matter of like, hey, I'm kind of disappointed that you're not handling this more logically. Like, can we not do that? Can we not talk bad about your son? And
sure.
if she apologizes and goes like, hey, like, I'm really sorry I've done this, and acknowledges that, then I'll be more than forgiving. It's a matter of like, you need to understand what you're doing is wrong first. So I mean, I guess I hope that makes sense.
No,
It
yeah.
does.
So when did,
Oh, you're good.
obviously things came
Yeah,
ahead
yeah,
and you now live with your father.
yeah. Well, and
Was
that's also
that,
because so she has like both my young siblings who are like 3 and 5, and she's teaching them that vaccines are bad. So like they've even, if I come over there, they're like, oh, like don't come near me, you're vaccinated. And so that's kind of hard to deal with. And I also like, I'm just so busy right now that like it's honestly, there's a lot of factors at play. Like it's more calm here, it's more quiet. My dad's also very supportive, so he takes me to the airport if I need to go somewhere. He'll help like pay for something if I need to buy something or like drive somewhere. So that's just a better atmosphere in general than just being argued with or like told I'm not listening to someone. And so I mean,
Sure.
she just got very caught up in it, and I'm just trying to like also deal with real life. I'm a high schooler. Like I can't every single day come home and like argue about vaccines.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you a question that that I have for you, being on both sides of the argument, essentially, do you think that vaccines should be something that the government should mandate?
So for mandates, you have to understand terminology here. So you're talking about mandates or
Mhm,
force. So mandates usually apply to school.
mhm,
So it's making school vaccinations mandatory, and look at the vaccination rates among school children. And so in states where you have to have a doctor's excuse to exempt from vaccines, and that's it. There's no personal religious exemptions. The vaccine rates amongst school kids are like 98%. So
Mm.
that's compared to like 70% in some states for school children. And that makes total sense because you're talking about how the government's not facilitating outbreaks and protecting people. But private schools can make whatever decision they want. So if you don't want to go to public school, go to private school. And they decide that you need to be vaccinated, that's their call. They're private. If you decide to homeschool, you can do that. So there's options there, but the government and private schools have every right to make whatever decision they want. So when mandates, first, like I say yes, but for mean by that, where it's like you get strapped down in a chair and get a syringe shoved in your shoulder, like that's a whole different. No one's proposing really. I've seen like almost no one saying like, "Hey, you get to where you're thrown in jail if you don't get vaccinated." Like that's not what I've seen proposed.
mhm.
So it depends on what
Right.
people are saying there.
Sure.
Although they're doing that, and they're starting to find people in New York now, but that's another story for another day. But
Right, but finding is different.
um,
Finding is very different from being arrested. That's what some people are
right,
kind of
yeah.
hypothesize, and it's like that's way, way, way down the road if ever got there.
Sure.
So now with your other siblings, like, are there any of your other siblings that are kind of like on the same page as you are that feel like you do?
1 second, I put my phone. You 1 second. My iPhone is being drained right now, like all battery, because this is like a live call. Um,
Sure.
but so for my siblings, back up. So for my siblings, it depends on who you're asking. So for my brother Noah, he kind of agrees with me, and we're finding ourselves on a similar wavelength. And he's saying like, hey, it seems like there's not a lot of logic behind what mom's saying. Not in an angry or bitter way, just doesn't make sense. And that's his opinion. My sister Emma is doing more research, and so there's like my older brother Isaac is like, I don't know where he lies. Like he's doing his thing. So it's a whole slew of different opinions. And so I'm not trying to force anyone to agree with me, but I'm just trying to maintain as much
Sure.
logic and respect as I can and say like, hey, do your research and you'll find yourself where I am. And that seems to be working for the most part. It's pretty convincing.
Sure.
Sure. Um,
So now you're
so,
oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
no, please go ahead, Katie.
So you have some big stuff coming up. Tell everyone about what's going to happen in the fall with Belgium.
Yeah. So I've done this TED talk. I've done Samantha Bee, which have all been great. The biggest thing that I think is coming up my calendar is this event in September. So September like 14th, I'm going to Belgium for a UN conference, which I think it's the director of the WHO will be there. Michelle Obama speaking, I think after me, and I'm giving a special address at this conference in Belgium. So I think it's September 14th, as far as I remember. So I'm discussing through some emails, like working that out. And as far as I understand, like that's fully confirmed. They sent me a schedule of the speakers, and it's like a couple of doctors, me on the special address, Michelle Obama, and then WHO directors further down. So it's
Wow.
nuts. Like basically, I'm speaking in front of the UN.
Wow. Wow.
So
I'm
yeah,
super jealous right now.
that's kind of nuts.
You get to
Yes.
meet Michelle
My cousin,
Obama.
yeah, my cousin Haley, she was in Texas, and she's like 23 or 4, and I've never traveled out of the country, and so she was like, "Oh my god, that's so cool! I wish I could go." And I was like, "You might be able to because I need someone to go with because I've never traveled outside the country." And so she's coming with me, and she freaked out, and she was crying over the phone, and she was like, "Oh my god, I love Michelle Obama!" So
Good.
it's
That's
it's definitely
fantastic.
crazy, like it's insane.
What
Yeah.
a neat opportunity.
Yes.
So
That's
Yeah,
exciting.
with
for
the
sure.
Senate, with the Senate stuff, after you testified, and I know you said that you had some, awkward run-ins with some of the anti-vaxxers, but what was it like to meet and speak with some of did you get a chance to speak with the senators or people on the committee after the meeting?
Talking to senators after the meeting because I think all of them left. I spoke to Senator Alexander. Talked to him a little bit beforehand because he went around and shook all the witness hands and was like, "Thanks for coming." And that was really nuts because I was like, "Oh my god, this is crazy." And I was asked a few questions by the senators, and a lot of them just left either midway or after the Senate hearing was over. But I did a couple interviews after that as well. So I mean, it was not really, but it was still pretty.
That's amazing.
Unreal. All these people that you have met now since just getting the vaccines. And you haven't caught the autism yet.
I mean, it's more than just that, though. Yeah, I mean, we're talking about how I got vaccinated after my mom was like, "Hey, no," and I also had the support of a lot of people and a lot of encouragement and good advice.
Right.
And even after that,
yeah,
when the media started picking it up, when the media started picking it, I was asking mentors for advice and friends and family. And so this isn't just me jumping on it and it just happens. This was very complicated. A lot of really good people that kind of influenced it to make sure it got here.
Sure.
Yeah. Well, it's a very compelling story, and there's a lot of complexities that are going on here between your mother and you, and then you're an 18-year-old who's actually well-spoken and uses good vocabulary, which is good for the media.
Yeah. I mean, but
hello?
Yeah. Give me one second.
You there?
There we go.
Yeah. Give me 1 second. Okay. I think we're good.
Yeah, you're good.
Are you able to see me fine?
Sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Okay.
Katie, did you have any other questions before we get to super chats and the questions from the audience?
So I guess my last question would be is if there were other kids that are in your position and they want to get vaccinated, or they're in a position where they feel like maybe their parents gave them bad information, what advice would you give to those kids about, what they should do if they would like to go sort of down that same path as you?
So what I've always said to people that have reached out, just that it all starts with you making a decision what you believe is true, and if you think that getting those is as important as I do, and that your parents and your family is going to be very negative, then find the way to do that as respectfully as possible. Communicate you want to do that, don't just do it. And most of the time people respond thanks, or I'll see what I can do, and I don't really hear back from them usually. But for anyone hypothetically in the same situation, I say the same thing. Be respectful, be open, and communicate with your parents. And if you really do believe they're good, then make sure you go and get your vaccines when you can, because that's super important, not just for yourself but for other people.
Right.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Okay.
Do you want to get your
I'll read
super chat?
let me read these, and then we'll let you we'll give you the final thought, Ethan, and we'll call it a. Thank you very much for coming on, by the way. I really appreciate you taking the time to talk to us. This was amazing. Steven Steen says this kid rocks. Fuzzy Lollipop said at Flat Earth Idiots, the Flat Earth movement is now officially over. The private expedition from Israel to the spacecraft moon is captured. I think that was a Flat Earth thing. I'm not really sure why that was on this one, but yes, the Earth is not flat. Fuzzy Lollipop. Zyphon Productions both sent a super chat without a message. Thank you. Jostine Fallett says, I think everybody should arm bears. Steven Steen says, kid's a star, stands for science, and a theist. Fuzzy Lollipop says, Kyle, did you get a haircut? It looks good. I didn't. I just slicked it back today. 0132132. I wish I could get famous for telling my mom she was wrong. I'm definitely a worse son than this kid is. So I think that's a that's a nod to how good of a son you are. And then Aussie Globehead says, Shieldbot loves your hair, Kyle. Thank you very much, Aussie. Tell Shieldbot I said I appreciate it. Katie, anything else on your end?
Yeah, I've got Sue Ellen Brosnan. She said that she's very proud of you, Ethan. And then Jason Schneider wanted to know has your mom's opinions on the issues moved at all during any of this point? Has she changed anything?
No. I mean, if anything, it's reinforced her fully and completely, because the interview she's been getting and doing, these people have like been very accommodating and kind and telling her like, "Yeah, you're a good mother. The media's misrepresenting you, and your son is misled," and so that's continued to reinforce those ideas. And it's very contrasting in the way that they approach her versus like the media saying, "Hey, misinformed mother, informed son," where these people are like, "Hey, you're awesome." So turning her into a martyr definitely like reinforced her beliefs. So no, if anything, she went further down that path.
Excellent.
And a lot of my supporters just wanted you had told me privately about the support, but just tell people that about all of the different support systems that you have, because they were worried about the fact that there is this sort of division right now with your mother. So let people know about what kind of support you have.
So I have a great home life. I mean, my dad is amazing. He's been so supportive, so kind. I have, pastors and people I rely on, mentors that kind of help me through the decisions I make, for any frustrations I'm going through, any questions I have. So I have a lot of very wise people, a lot of very mature adults are speaking great wisdom and advice into the situation. So I'm not just gunning it. I have some very, very smart and very mature, great people that are supporting me. So that's nothing to worry about.
Okay, because my supporters were going to adopt you if they needed to, they said.
I mean, I appreciate the expression.
They were so like, "I'll take him home if he needs a place to live."
Good people out there.
Yeah.
Well, Ethan, thank you.
Sure.
Thank you so much for taking the time to stop in and talk to us. This was amazing. It's so good to hear your story. I'm glad that you went and decided to get vaccinated, and good luck to you and all of your ventures in the future.
Yeah, thanks so much.
Thank you
Thanks for having me
so
on.
much. Thank you so much for reaching out and for agreeing to do this. This was amazing. My people have been looking forward to hearing this all week. So thank you again.
Yeah, not a problem at all. I was really glad I could reach out and get this going. So that was really cool.
Excellent. Well, guys, that will do it for us today. We will not. There won't be a non-sec show tonight, like usual, at 9 o'clock. I'm sure, Katie, you'll be back doing your daily streams tomorrow, right?
Oh, yeah. Getting in a fight with someone.
Yeah, and us too. We on Wednesday, I know that that Rand Campbell is finally going to have his talk with Shannon Q. So you're not going to want to miss that. Oh, there's one more super chat coming in. This is from Fuzzy Lollipop. It says, "Great job, Ethan. We need more family members to come out and talk more. We need more people who have family members that believe these things to come out and talk more about the truth. Always speak the truth." And I think that's definitely what you did.
Awesome.
For sure. So that'll do it for us. We'll catch you guys tomorrow at 9 o'clock right here on NonSequitur.
Yep.
Katie, what time are you going tomorrow?
I'm generally on around 6 o'clock Central Time, 7 o'clock Eastern. So I'll see you guys tomorrow. Bye, guys.
And Ethan, where can people find you if they want to follow you,
where can they find you?
and get more information on you?
So I have Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter page just under my name, Ethan Lindenberger. You can find I have a website which is adolescentadvocate.com. So adolescentadvocate.com is where I post like a blog, and I have other information what I'm doing. I post like videos of projects I'm doing. So like the TED Talk, when that's there, I'll post it to that website. So my social media is in that website. It's kind of where you can follow me. So
excellent. Well, make sure you check him out, guys.
And if you would like to be entertained, his Twitter is always full of nice little retorts.
I'm glad I'm not the only one.
Good. I enjoy that.
Twitter is a magical place, isn't it? Magical place.
It is. Yes.
Definitely.
All right, guys.
100%.
We'll see you tomorrow.
Bye, guys.